Hello, everybody, and welcome to my guide for soloing Verac Lith, the second boss of Elite Dungeons 2, also known as Dragonkin Laboratory. If you haven't seen yet, I also have a video on the first boss, Astelard. So definitely watch that if you're going through this dungeon for the first time. But if you're at Verac Lith already, then here we are. So I'm gonna let the video of my kill here play through. Again, just like with my Astellarn video, this is actually only my second Verac Lith kill. And then I'll play it again once I explain his mechanics a little bit better. So, for starters, a lot of people say that this is actually the most difficult boss of Dragonkin Laboratory. I actually think he's the easiest. Maybe that's just me, but for a couple reasons. So I chose to use melee here first off. I am using a Scrimshaw Vampirism, and this is actually the same run as I had in my Astellarn video, so that means that I am on... Oops, I almost died there. And that means that... apologies. I'm on a Slayer task, and my Slayer task is Dragon, so that gives me a boost to the Slayer helmet. I also have the Genocidal perk, which at this point is giving me a 5% damage boost, so those are noteworthy advantages here. Otherwise, as far as gear, I am using Masterwork Armor, Slayer helmet, and Tetsu dual wielding. That's the tier 88 ports melee weapons. I also have a switch for Laniaka's spear. It's not a noxious scythe because I'm poor. And I'll explain why I brought the spear in a moment, because it is a halberd weapon and that comes in handy. I will note right away that as this is my second kill, there is one mechanic or one trick that I entirely forgot to use, which is the Debilitate ability. Make sure you have that hotkeyed and do not do what I did here, which is forget all about it. That will save you a lot of damage in the long run. And one more quick note before we get into the full mechanics here. Definitely bring a shield for a resonance heal, because Verac Lith, in my opinion, is one of the easiest bosses to do in this dungeon because he has very predictable mechanics and very predictable patterns. And he has a lot of moments where he doesn't really attack you. And he has this Spire attack, which you can see there. That is... it gives you a long time to prepare, and you can resonance it for a lot of healing. So he does take longer to kill than Astellarn, not quite as long as Blackstone Dragon. That one is a whole nother bag of worms. But as long as you consistently deal with the mechanics correctly, you should not have too much trouble with him. I will say also that it is probably easier to use magic or ranged. As you can see, I actually almost died several times, and my defense cape is not saving me because I actually used that for Astellarn. So all these times that I'm almost dying, I am actually almost dying and saving myself. And that's partly due to me choosing to melee. Another reason for that is that because this is the same run as Astellarn, I used up one of my auras. To be honest, I forget which one, but it was very handy for ranging. I think it was Vampirism. For either maging or ranging, I recommend that one, even over the Berserker, the Maniacal and the ranged equivalent. That give you damage boosts, because the healing is actually pretty significant, I think, here. So if you choose to melee like I do, make sure you stay within his melee range at all times, and actually, regardless of style that you choose to use. It depends. So his melee hits hard, but it can miss. His melee can hit up to 4,000 or so, I believe. His magic does not miss his magic auto attack, and he does several of those in between his special mechanics, and the magic attack hits quite hard. Actually, you can see I I forgot to pick an aura here, so I will say, guys, this run is actually pretty shitty. I should have died a bunch of times here, but it goes to show that even if you're a very bad PVMer, you can still get through this with an inventory of sharks and a Ripper Demon that's spamming scrolls constantly. So, that leads me to his first mechanic that you can see here, which is this Spire. So you'll get a warning, ample warning, in the form of a message that pops up that says, the ground is shaking or something like that. You need to destroy the Spire before you attack Verac Lith, because he is actually invulnerable until you do so. If you're ranging or using magic, this isn't really much of a concern, but I brought the Laniaka's Spear, which is a halberd weapon, for that purpose, because if you are meleeing and you are out of, I think his melee range extends actually to about 4 squares, which is pretty generous, or maybe it's 2 or 3. But if you're outside of his melee range, he will use magic 100% of the time as an auto attack. If you're within his melee range, he will use melee 100% of the time. So for your protection prayers, that's important to know. Regardless, his Spire spawns sometimes a little bit far away from him, so I used Spear to keep that extra space of distance to make sure that I can stay within his melee range. His second mechanic that I want to address is one that you keep seeing hitting me here for about 4,000. So he will have a ball of stuff fall from the sky. I don't remember the official name, to be honest. But it falls from the sky. Now, there is a way you can deal with this mechanic to reduce the damage taken, which is you can stand where it's going to land, which is indicated by green arrows. You can absorb it, you take some damage, but not much. And the thing that you absorb is going to be one of 3 types, similar to like the King Black Dragon's heads. One, it's either poison, ice, or shock. And you'll notice these like clusters of eggs around the arena. So whatever type of energy drop thing from the sky that you absorb, you'll need to offload it if you absorb it into an egg that's not of that type. So for example, if you absorbed poison, you need to offload it into the frost or shock eggs, and then otherwise it'll explode and do a bunch of damage to you. The way that I deal with this, and the way that most players who choose to deal with this, I think, is to just eat the hit. Now, I mentioned before that I forgot to hotkey Debilitate here. Actually, I noticed that I do have it hotkeyed, I just completely forgot to use it, so my bad. But Debilitate will actually work for that, so if you use Debilitate right before that ball of energy falls from the sky, you will reduce the damage taken from about 4,000 to a maximum of 2,000, and that does help a lot. Now, I know that took a while to explain, and we've seen a bunch of his other mechanics here in the meantime, but the third one that you'll see is the Dive Bombing Black Dragon there. This one is the easiest to dodge. You'll see an indicator on the screen in the form of like a red arrow. If you move around, you'll see it'll follow you. Just move away, keep moving out of its way. It takes a few ticks or it takes a few seconds until the dragon actually bombs. And when it does, if you're in that line of fire, it's similar to Gorbek's line of fire in the Vindicta and Gorbek fight. It'll do a lot of damage every tick, so you want to get out of there or it actually could kill you. But again, it's fairly easy to dodge. If you're meleeing and it does matter where you're standing, you can wait till the last minute, and when you see the red arrow disappear, you can just move. And the range of that line of fire does not extend very far, so you're quite alright. So these 2 mechanics, the dropping energy ball of the sky that's either frost, shock, or poison, that one, and the dive bombing dragon will occur twice. And now you'll see these flames. So these are especially dangerous, especially if you're meleeing, because what you need to do is get out of the way as soon as possible. So Verac Lith will spawn a bunch of flames in an area around you. Those aren't so bad, but they turn into these little fire tornadoes that actually expand quite a bit and start moving pretty far from their respective area. If they hit you, you will take a ton of damage, so you actually need to surge out of there. There's really no other way to do it. When you're meleeing, make sure to turn on Protect from Magic. Actually, when you're using any style, make sure to use Protect from Magic, because you'll probably surge far away from Verac Lith enough that he'll start auto-attacking magic until you get into his melee range again. And then you can use Protect from Melee. So really, that's all of his mechanics. He will do the Dive Bombing Dragon. Well, first he'll do the Ball from the Sky, excuse me. And then he'll do the Dive Bombing Dragon. In between each of those, he will do that Spire mechanic. And the reason that I mentioned before that this is an easy fight, and I haven't explained it yet, but you've seen me do it throughout. The Spire is very predictable, and it hits for up to 3,000 damage or so. So if you have a shield, you can very easily resonance that and just heal yourself for, I think most of the hits in this kill did about 2,500, so they healed for that much. It's pretty crazy healing, so it takes away a lot of need for food. And I mean, really, as you can see, by the end of this kill, I have 2 sharks left, but that's because I was very sloppy. If I was actually using Debilitate, and if I remembered my aura and wasn't fiddling around with all that stuff, and if you have better gear than I do, you really should have no problem doing this with a similar inventory or even poorer. Like I said, he's very repetitive, very predictable. Most of the mechanics are pretty dodgeable, or just you eat the damage and then, you know, recover. So yeah, in my opinion, that's why he's the easiest boss. He does take a little bit of time, although nothing compared to the Blackstone Dragon, which will be in my next video, actually. So really, that's it. If you want to make it easy on yourself, like I said, mage or range him. That way you don't have to worry about your spacing and your staying within melee or maging distance as much. But I hope this helped out any of you who are doing this dungeon for the first time or are just struggling on this boss. If you like this kind of video, then please like and subscribe, and I will probably make some more at some point. So, all right, catch you next time, everybody.